Welcome back. This presentation was delivered to the Traumatic Loss Coalition of Atlantic and Cape May counties on May 11th, 2020. As we begin to think about students returning to school in whatever form that is, we eventually need to be intentional about the fact that we will slowly be returning still in a global crisis. Our students will be carrying into schools levels of stress that will exceed what they carried in prior to this event. Here's data from May 10th on COVID-19. In the United States, we have, as of May 10th, over 1.3 million cases of coronavirus. Our deaths exceeded 80,000, and we've had over 240,000 people in the United States recover. In New Jersey, as of May 9th, New Jersey has 137,085 confirmed cases of COVID-19. Over 9,000 people have died in our state. In our southern counties, you will see Atlantic County with over 1,400 confirmed cases and 72 deaths. Cape May County with 442 confirmed cases and 32 deaths. And Cumberland County with over 1,200 confirmed cases and 34 deaths. Everyone is at risk during this time. Everyone reacts differently to stressful situations. Within the general public, including those who never acquire the virus, the overall lifestyle change and the fear that we are managing on a daily basis may lead to a trauma response. Fear and anxiety about a disease can be overwhelming and can cause strong emotions in adults and children. Our survival brains will perceive this virus as a threat and generate a threat response. COVID-19 is unpredictable, has limited our movement and our connection. It embodies all the characteristics that are tailor-made for creating stress and anxiety. Adding to the stress level is the unpredictability of when things will become normal again. A collective trauma is a traumatic psychological effect shared by a group of people of any size, up to and including an entire society, or in this case, planet. Traumatic events witnessed by an entire society can stir up collective sentiment, often resulting in a shift in that society's culture and mass actions. A sample of some well-known collective traumas include the Holocaust, the Armenian Genocide, slavery in the United States, the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Trail of Tears, the attack on Pearl Harbor, and the September 11th, 2001 attacks in the United States. Right now, we are experiencing a worldwide collective trauma. What is trauma? According to Dr. Bruce Perry, an expert in the world of trauma, trauma is a psychologically distressing event that is outside the range of usual human experience, often involving a sense of intense fear, terror, or helplessness. When you look at the original word trauma, it's a Greek word for wounding. Whenever we're wounded, there's scar tissue that forms, and scar tissue is always harder, less resilient, and less flexible than the tissue that it replaces. When psychological trauma happens, our psyches become more rigid and harder and less flexible. According to Dr. Perry, this pandemic will devastate our most marginalized, disconnected, and disenfranchised youth. The very children we serve in our mental health cases, our mental health care systems, our juvenile justice systems, and yes, everyone is at risk. However, the most at risk students prior to this pandemic will be even more impacted by these events. Already, many of them have checked out of virtual learning. The type of trauma occurring right now is acute trauma. Acute trauma is defined as the following: children who have experienced or witnessed a single traumatic episode. Acute traumatic stress is caused by an individual's subjective experience of an extreme traumatic event, which can lead to extreme stress that inhibits a person's ability to cope. Individual experiences will be very different depending on many factors. Anything that threatens belongings and connection will increase stress. There is no clear division between stress and trauma. However, we know that stress can lead to trauma, which leads to adaptation or may develop into post-traumatic stress disorder. Acute traumatic stress is caused again by an individual's subjective experiences of an extreme event, which can lead to extreme stress that inhibits a person's ability to cope. COVID-19 certainly can meet that definition. Again, there's no clear division between stress and trauma. Recognizing the symptoms of stress you may be experiencing is the first step, and recognizing in our students is the second. Feeling irritation, anger, or denial. Feelings of uncertainty, nervousness, or anxiousness. Feeling helpless or powerlessness. Lacking motivation. Feeling tired, overwhelmed, or burned out. Feeling sad or depressed. Having trouble sleeping. Having trouble concentrating. Having trouble getting things done. All signs of stress within humans. Our kids were not in great shape prior to this event. Here's the kids count data on safety and well-being for children in Atlantic County, Cape May County, and Cumberland County. In Atlantic County, prior to this event, 17th out of 21 counties on safety and well-being of our children. Cape May County, last in safety and well-being, and Cumberland County, 20th out of 21 counties. Our children were struggling in this area prior to this pandemic. This pandemic will increase those struggles. Families under stress, families that have lost work, will contribute to stress. Stressed families have stressed kids. Dr. Wendy Ellis, the creator of the Pera Basis, which combined adverse childhood experiences and adverse community environments, has recently added COVID-19 to our list of community experiences. This includes lack of access to technology, lack of access to being able to work remotely, food insecurity, lack of access to paid leave, lack of access to primary health care, higher rates of risk factors and mortality due to chronic diseases. These, along with the adverse community environments as well as adverse childhood experiences, are now combining to really cause serious levels of stress in many of our children's families and in their lives. On May 4th, 2020, Governor Murphy closed schools for the rest of the school year. Above and beyond the panic and trauma that comes from pandemics, we're facing an undetermined amount of time when school, and consequently the only structure and sense of safety for many kids across the nation, is taken away. As you know, for many kids, schools provide safety, food, a predictable routine, opportunities for socialization, connections, and stimulation. Any change from this routine is stressful. And if parents now have to look for childcare or are worried about money, income, and paying their rent or mortgage, stress levels go up, and we will see behavioral changes in the kids. Here's what traumatic stress looks like. On the left, a slide of a healthy nervous system. On the right, a slide of traumatic stress within a system. Notice you'll have a vacillation between people that are stuck on, which includes hyperactivity, high levels of anxiety and panic, inability to relax, a restlessness, emotional flooding, chronic pain, having trouble sleeping, easily angered, and easily frustrated, stuck on, and stuck on off. Here you'll see a flat affect, depression, exhaustion, a deadness, chronic fatigue, a disconnection, and a disassociation. Some folks and students will vacillate between both. The challenge of teaching through a pandemic. Do note, this is not homeschooling and it is not virtual schooling. What we are involved in currently is crisis schooling. We need to keep that in mind with our assignments, the amount of work we're expecting young people to do in households filled with stress, often unable to get those tasks completed. We really have to be intentional about our workload and the supports we are providing for these young people. Children develop in an environment of relationships that begins in the family, but also involves other adults who play important roles in their lives. This can include extended family members, providers of early child care, teachers, nurses, social workers, coaches, police, and neighbors. These relationships affect virtually all aspects of development: intellectual, social, emotional, physical, and behavioral. And their quality and stability is the foundation that supports a wide range of later outcomes. Building relationships in a classroom is more natural than in an online context, but the concept of relationships and connections preceding learning applies now more than ever. Our ability to facilitate relationships and connections, providing social support, are critical for learning and can buffer and dampen our students' stress responses. I love the saying on this slide: the body heals with play, the mind heals with laughter, and the spirit heals with joy. Do consider integrating those three things into your school lessons. Our goal is to keep children in that comfort zone in the middle. how do we begin, how do we create that sense of comfort so that we can help them stay emotionally regulated. Some of the things we can do include having that predictable routine so that they can count on seeing that stays the same. Also, taking a look at using some mindfulness activities. Remember, the brain learns best in a state of relaxed alertness. And breath and movement can be used to move students toward this state and get them in that emotional comfort zone, that emotional regulation zone. So to try to weave these kind of activities into your teaching. If you look at the diagram on this slide, we got to be thinking of bottom up when we're talking about learning. So if you look at that, the child's need, first safety, second some movement, that emotional engagement and connection to dampen the stress response in the limbic system, and then learning can occur. So top to bottom, we really want to start from the bottom and move to the top. If you look at that bottom around safety in that brainstem and midbrain region, movement, rhythm, any kind of rhythmic activities will calm that stress response. The resilient brain. Again, stressed brains do not learn. Our first thought as teachers need to be ways to help students open up that learning part of the brain. As Dr. Perry says, regulate, relate, then reason, bottom up. Structured predictability and routines, break assignments into very small manageable segments. Build in frequent movement and rhythm breaks. Provide choices as often as possible in your assignments. Teach children about their brains during this time. Continue to build connections, even connecting students to each other via Zoom or other platforms. Provide structure. Build in frequent movement and rhythm breaks, again, to calm that lower region of the brain. Provide students with choices as often as possible. This gives them a sense of some control and agency that will also dampen their stress response. The profound importance of connected relationships. Teaching is a relational practice. Teaching and learning practice exists in the in-between between self and others, figure 2 of this diagram, that interpersonal in-between. There is no other place it can be. Without our presence in the in-between, there is no opportunity for co-created, connected experiences to occur. We are neurobiologically designed to respond to one another's offers of connections. Humans have an innate desire for emotional closeness with others, and the brain's amygdala is the gateway to trust by deciding if someone is safe or dangerous. Dr. Porges calls this neuroception. Neuroception is the process through which the nervous system evaluates risk. What we are doing online in that interpersonal in-between space is trying to create a connection and ongoing supports through predictable routines that will lower the stress response for the young people we're serving. To introduce you to the 7 habits of creating reclaiming relationships with young people. The first habit is about attention. Attention involves supporting children and providing nurturance. Attending to young people we support requires us to listen with an intent to understand from their perspective. A strategy we have shared in the past is the 2x10 strategy that can be adapted to online students. The 2x10 strategy is simple. Spend 2 minutes per day for 10 days in a row talking with a student about anything she or he wants to talk about. There's no mystery to the reasoning here. The strategy builds a rapport and a relationship between teacher and student and lets the child see that you genuinely care about him or her as a person. If you're experiencing some people online in your class not showing up or not showing up very often, I would encourage you to try to do a 2x10 with them individually. Empathy, number 2. Empathy is the need to feel heard and understood and builds on the habit of attention. Empathy is built by providing students with the experience of really being listened to and heard. It provides what is known as psychological visibility. We can do this through shared journal writing, shared story writing, allowing students to write or draw their emotional experiences, or even having them create videos about how they're feeling or what their day is like. Those shared experiences build understanding and calm the brain. 3, trust. Trusting relationships are built over time, and young people describe trusted adults as adults who make promises and keep them. These adults always do what they say they are going to do. Trust brings safety and stability and predictability to relationships. All, again, help calm that nervous system. Respect. Respect also helps to build trust. These adults always treat students with high degrees of dignity and respect, regardless of how the students treat them. Respect is also shown to students by involving them in making decisions and choices about the work they are doing. These adults share power with students. Availability. Teachers and these adults make time for students, and I know many of you are doing that well above the regular school day. They make time to check, connect, do check-ins, and let students know that they are there for them. Again, this conveys the message you are worthy and important to students. Affirmations. These adults are able to find something positive in all students and reflect it back to them. Even in the middle of struggles, they mirror the strengths back to the young people and provide them with a sense to keep going. These affirmations provide a sense of hope and give a sense of worth. Affirming a child's strengths allow them to see themselves in a much different light. And lastly, generosity. These adults provide students with structure, correction when needed, and create safe environments and protect others' boundaries. I love the saying on this slide from John Sietta, programs never change people, people change people. Some ideas about cultivating belonging in an online environment. Certainly video conferencing and one-to-one chats with teachers and counselors. Connections via any form of social media, also important. Text messages, old school phone calls, letter writing even, and cards in the mail. All ways to reach out and connect. Some schools that I've been working with have started to create a virtual wellness room online, where students can enter that wellness room. There's various activities for them to do, ranging from mindfulness activities to short videos of calming scenes and teaching them some breath and movement work. All really good ways to create a sense of belonging in that online environment. And lastly, a favorite saying by Neil Noddings: the student is infinitely more important than the subject matter. Thank you for what you're doing to support children during this time, and appreciate all that you're doing.